and welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. I say that every time like it's the first time, but it's good to be back. And today I'm following on from a previous interview with the wife of the man. And so today we're talking to Lisa Gombinsky Roach. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And it's going to be interesting to pick up some of the threads that we covered when I was talking to Alexander the other day. And so here we are. It's come around very, very quick. I didn't realize we'd be doing it so soon. So that's fantastic. Thank you.
Type A personality, get it done on the day.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. If it's on the list, get it ticked off.
Thank you. That's me in a nutshell. Yep.
Fantastic. So yeah, tell us more. Obviously, you're from Canadian origins as well.
I am, yes.
Yeah, and you've worked around the world. I mean, I see there's just a long list of countries that you have been practicing. You've worked here, obviously, Australia, Norway, Canada, of course, and England as well. So yeah. There's probably not enough time to cover everything that that you've done. So we're probably looking for highlights, I think. But I certainly wanted to cover sort of Counterpunch and a whole bunch of other things as well. But yeah, give us a bit of background, Lisa, as to how you got into what you're doing and where it's taken you.
So my primary profession is conductive education, and so what I would define that is I'm a teacher, an educator who specializes in teaching movement strategies and skills to people with a range of neurological conditions that affect movement, including but not a tiny list: Parkinsons, stroke, MS, brain injury, cerebral palsy, those kinds of things. So something where you've got something going on neurologically and it affects your ability to move as intended. I started doing that. Sorry, I am nervous a little bit.
No, don't worry. All good.
That's why I went to the UK in the first place. I went there to study conductive education, and I love it. And it's still very much a part of everything that I do, though I don't exclusively dwell in the world of conductive education anymore. I've, play around and build different things in. And I got into fitness because about 15, 16 years ago in Australia, I had a lot of people that I was seeing in a conductive education environment that I wanted to move into a mainstream fitness environment. And at that time and in that place, there were not trainers interested in, people in wheelchair and people with cerebral palsy and people with complicated bodies. And so I requalified as a personal trainer so that I could literally come out to the other end and meet my own clients in a fitness space. I was already involved in gym. So I've been somebody who enjoys lifting weights, and I've played rugby and all kinds of other things. So it wasn't an unusual environment for me. It was just, I knew that there were people who I was seeing clinically that I needed to see in a different space and capacity.
Right.
And I have worked in mainstream fitness, and every once in a while I dip my toes back in, but at present I only see people with some sort of chronic condition or chronic need. I've extended out who that might include. So I work with people at different stages of cancer treatment. I work with older adults. I work with people who have chronic injuries that they're rehabilitating from. But generally speaking, while I think people are very lucky to end up on my client list because of the care and the specialist attention that they receive, most people, you don't want to end up on my client list, but if you have a reason to, then this is a good place to be. So.
A good one to be on.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing where you say, "Ooh, barter." So you fix my car, and if you ever need my services, come and see me, because it's kind of like wishing someone gets dementia or Parkinson's, right? So very different.
Yeah. And what was it that sort of drew you to that space? I mean, it's quite a specialized area and obviously requires some specialized education, but something must have sort of drawn you in originally.
Yeah, I was looking. So I had a real passion even back then for trying to be part of the solution and not in a Band-Aid putting on kind of way. And I was looking at education. I have a certain amount of background in music, and conductive education has a very strong basis in using rhythm to help facilitate movement in certain things. So there was a music connection. I had an interest in healthcare and disability, but I was I don't want to say anti-establishment, that especially in current times, that sounds very, it sounds very, you know, anti with this and anti that. But I was looking for a place where I could really make a difference and catch things at the right time. And I'd actually gone in a very different direction. Previously, I'd been looking at, like, you know, women's support, rape crisis counseling, that kind of stuff. And I really felt like I was at the bottom of the hill with the wheelbarrow picking up. And when I came across the ideas in conductive education and realized that you could, with the right kind of input, dramatically change the long-term prognosis for somebody living with a chronic condition, it made sense to look at, this is a place where I can come in. This is a place where I can make a long-term difference. This is a place where I can be holistic in the way that I approach and work with people. This is something that fills a humongous gap, because everywhere in the world, you know, there's a certain amount of services for people, but everything is based around medical needs and acuteness. And it doesn't take into consideration that with most of the people that I work with, most of the conditions with whom that I specialize in, these are people who are going to be living with these conditions for the rest of their lives. They are going to continue to grow and change and age with these conditions. Some of these conditions are going to progress and get worse. And having a couple weeks of physiotherapy when you're 6 years old doesn't necessarily set you up to live to be 80 with cerebral palsy, right? So I really felt like there was need, that there was gaps. And then I think also in conductive education, you know, I remember very early, one of our professors, who I'm still very much in touch with, so this is somebody I've been in touch with since the mid-90s. I remember him saying, it's either for you or it's not for you. And you'll know in the first few months. And for me, the pedagogy behind the approach sat very comfortably with how I see people, how I understand potential, how I understand the role of an educator and a facilitator. You know, I never want to be an expert. I don't see myself as an expert. I see myself as a skilled facilitator. And what I'm skilled at is sharing other people's experiences and solutions with people who can benefit from there. And that model in conductive education appealed to me. And there are definitely some regrets in that it's being in an alternative profession that's not funded and that's not recognized by healthcare systems has challenges. But the fitness industry has provided me a space where I can be somebody who specializes in movement and exercise for this particular set of people. I can do it in the way that works for me. I can be my own boss. I'm not begging and pleading with funding applications and this and that. So I'm outside of all of those systems, but I can still make a tremendous difference long-term for people. And I also think that this is, you know, I love all ends of the fitness industry. I like, you know, I appreciate weight loss and I appreciate getting stronger and I appreciate body transformation, and I've spent my time there, but I really have infinite patience for this work, whereas anything else to do with the fitness industry, I don't have an interest in. But this drives me, you know, that somebody can play with grandchildren or get out of bed or end, you know, see the end of their life well, or have a little bit less pain. This gives me a reason to get up in the morning. And I can combine it with current recommendations around exercise and movement for people with these conditions. These are people who are not getting their daily dose of movement because there aren't people who can support them to do that. There are more than there were, but there weren't when I started. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, and it's just beautifully explained. And I get a real sense that it's definitely you found your ikigai. It's the reason for being, you know, that where that vocation crosses over with your job, if you like.
Very much so.
Yeah. Fantastic. Really amazing what you do. And I see in some of my notes there that you've done some exercise as medicine, some work with the exercise as medicine guys in Christchurch. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we sort of informally made an arrangement that I'm carrying the banner for exercise as medicine for the North Island as well. So I work very closely with Chris and Tim. I've run some courses directly through them, and lots of the work that we do crosses over. So only respect for what they're doing in this industry as well.
Brilliant. And the other couple of things that I note is you talk about the work that you're doing relating to the current research and best practice. You're clearly up to date with that and stay current so that as research changes and it evolves, your practice evolves.
100%. One of the joys of being a little bit autistic myself is that I'm up to date with anything that's relevant to my work. So yes.
Yeah.
So by that, I mean that there's definitely, so we know that the brain needs certain dosages of movement. We don't know specifically what they are, but we know that being sedentary is not just poor, it doesn't just promote poor cardiovascular health or diabetes and these kinds of things, but we know it's actually terrible for brains. And in the face of chronic degenerative conditions, when you add in the disuse and the extra poor effects of being sedentary, you create all kinds of additional problems. You know, when you look at also people who struggle to move, and then you feed them negatively from a neuroplasticity point of view by not allowing them to move or not working with them, then their physical disability progresses. And so the impairment and disability interrelation are definitely affected by whether or not somebody is encouraged and given corrections on how they move. We know that higher intensity exercise has the potential to help people's brains fight back against conditions like Parkinson's and dementia. And, you know, but you can't just take somebody with Parkinson's and dementia and chuck them into an environment where the trainer doesn't have an understanding of the other difficulties in there. So what I'm trying to do is to be as relevant as possible. You know, there are exercise guidelines for dementia prevention, as well as better management for Parkinson's, for stroke, for MS, for cerebral palsy. And most people with these conditions are not meeting their bare minimum, let alone targets for exercise guidelines. So there's a huge amount of work. And that's, you know, when you asked about working with Chris and Tim with Exercises Medicine New Zealand, and some of the other work we're doing with Counterpunch, some of the writing that I've done recently, you know, for me, one of the joys of my life is that the fitness industry has changed enough that there are people, you know, that Tim can help me host a neuro trainer course, and that we can fill up a room with people who want to learn about stroke and dementia. You know, 15 years ago, when I moved from Australia to New Zealand, I had a full caseload, like we're talking a heaving caseload, and I couldn't find people to take my clients. And these are people, they never miss a session, they never cancel, they come when they're not, you know, their best, because they know that you can help them through these things. So we're talking like the ideal client from a personal training point of view. And I couldn't find people who wanted these clients because they maybe, you know, looked a little funny or drooled or talked a little funny or sat a little, you know, in a chair. And now, you know, I can run a Counterpunch course, or, you know, that neuro trainer course that Chris and Tim and I ran, we overbooked. We had 22 people in Christchurch who did a full 2-day course learning about, you know, things that nobody wants to talk about. So, you know, for me, that's the joy, like that there's going to be other people doing this work, that it's not just me. There's more than enough disability and chronic conditions for absolutely everybody, even if it's just a tiny bit of what they do. And to know that there's other people doing the work and interested and wanting to do it well. You know, I can kind of die happy, which is, I'm not planning to do that anytime soon, but
no,
it could happen unexpectedly.
It's really encouraging, isn't it, that the market's changed that much, then that you've got an audience and you've got people that are hungry for that information and want to learn.
Yes.
So that's phenomenal. I guess, yes, that would be, that would spin your wheels for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about Counterpunch. I think that's where Alexandra and I touched on, was just the whole concept of what Counterpunch is, how it's useful for Parkinson's sufferers, and a bit about the business model as well, in terms of, you know, you've got your affiliates and you've got that ongoing relationship and so on. How did that come about? So,
as I said, I keep up to date with what's going on in the things that I'm interested in. There, around 2012, I started noticing in my newsfeed stories about an American program called Rock Steady Boxing, so I didn't just wake up one day and go, "Ooh, boxing and Parkinson's, what a great idea." But basically, a young person with Parkinson's had been looking for an outlet and approached a female ex-boxer because he thought that a female would have more compassion around the crap that can be Parkinson's. And his movement got a lot better. And from that little like incidental encounter, a humongous program in America called Rocksteady Boxing grew, and they were getting some good results supported by bits and pieces of research at the time, but a lot of really good anecdotal evidence where people were feeling tremendously different when I started seeing some of the videos from Rocksteady, clinically, there was a lot of things that just made unbelievably good sense in the way that boxing training is structured. Sorry, there's a truck driving outside. I don't know if you're hearing that.
No,
but
okay.
So, you know, people with Parkinson's struggle with gait. They struggle with stepping in different directions. Boxing not only puts people in a strong athletic gait, but really works on agility and footwork in a way that no other sport does. Yep. People with Parkinson's have problems with forward reach. So again, like that movement in boxing naturally, people with Parkinson's have trouble with rotation. Boxing is all rotation driven. People with Parkinson's have a lot of trouble with multitasking and higher level coordination, where there's, you know, complex coordination, things like that. Thoracic rotation, all kinds of other things, executive function and balance. And then the other thing is that more than any other motor condition, people with Parkinson's move better in the presence of rhythm. And boxing has visual cueing, rhythmic cueing, all of these kinds of things that I already knew worked well in Parkinson's. So I kind of like did one of those, and when I can't believe I didn't think about it. Because I was already boxing people with cerebral palsy, people in wheelchairs and stuff like that. I was using BoxFit anyway. And so I had groups of people with Parkinson's in my services already, and a few of them who were keen to give it a go. So we went down to the local Y with no equipment and just had a bit of a play and had a try. I actually tried to get the Rocksteady people out here to deliver a course around 2014 or 15, and they did not have the capacity at the time. And so I went over to Indianapolis on my way home to Toronto. It was a good excuse to get home to Toronto to see my family, and did their qualification too. And which was okay, but they definitely didn't know what I knew about Parkinson's. And so I at the time, they're better now than they were as well. So I noticed a humongous boxing gym on the North Shore in Auckland with lots and lots of bags. I didn't know who Shane Cameron was at the time. I'm not from here, and I don't know a lot about boxing. And I was like, who's this dude who names a gym after himself? Like, what kind of ego does that take to me? And so I'm calling, and I'm like, why isn't this guy calling me back? Who does he think he is? But eventually he did return my call. And I had a tiny little boxing group happening at the Y with no equipment. And he rocked up one day, put on a pair of focus pads, got in, and like held pads for all of my little Parkinson's clients. And then he and I sat down, and I told him, this is, you know, I sent him some of the Rocksteady videos. I said, this is what I see. And he said, what would it take to make this happen? And I said to him, well, I already asked Rocksteady about coming out. And he said, look, I can teach the boxing. Can you teach the Parkinson's? And I said, yes. And we literally, a piece of a napkin and a coffee, worked out how we would run the course, what it would look like, what our business model between us could be. I was only looking for space. I didn't actually think that this was going to happen. And so with Shane Cameron comes a little bit of awesome free publicity, and that was very helpful early on. So we had a spot on 7 Sharp and got humongous amount of attention nationally in New Zealand from people with Parkinson's and people who loved people with Parkinson's, who wanted programs at their local gym. So that was where we went, right, let's get this course up and running. Let's roll it out. We weren't even called Counterpunch at the time. We were just like, you know, boxing at Shane Cameron's. And so, yeah, we ran our first course. The beginning few courses, we ran the courses together. We looked at what it would look like for people to be affiliated and how brand sharing works. So Shane does other things under the Counterpunch brand, lots of other things. Parkinson's is just one small part of that business piece for him. But what I wanted from a model, and the reason why I went affiliate model instead of franchise, was, first of all, I didn't want to tell other fitness industry professionals how to run their business or how to plan their sessions. We invited people into the course who were either working in boxing, so they were boxing coaches or running boxing gyms, or boxers, or they were fitness industry people, or they were allied health people who knew about Parkinson's. So they had to bring at least one piece to the the table.
Sure.
And we realized that there was people that were in all kinds of different situations. So there were some people like me who were just hiring space at gyms. There were some people who owned gyms. There were some people who were employed by gyms. There were some people who were working in the nonprofit sector. There were some people who were in very high-end physiotherapy clinics. And we couldn't tell them, this is what you charge. This is what a 12-week course looks like. We couldn't give them that. We wanted them to have autonomy and choice. But we also wanted to support them to grow, develop, do well, and to be able to put quality assurance and things like that on what was going to be our brand. So we went with affiliate models so that we could offer long-term support, so that we could connect them into to not just me, but to in our team. We've got neurophysios, we've got, speech therapists, we've got elite boxers, not just Shane. We've got people who are unbelievably experienced in the fitness industry. We've got sort of that mix of everything. And so if somebody comes into Counterpunch and affiliates with us, and they have a question about how do I manage somebody who's shuffling and freezing, or, what's some good combinations that we can do, we can support them through that.
Right.
And we also, the other really important thing for me with Counterpunch, there are other exercise programs that are physio driven for people with Parkinson's, but they are all very, 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 very expensive.
Yeah.
And so the physios who get these certifications and offer these programs are charging top dollar. So people might do a 6-week intensive program that would cost them several $1,000s. And then what next? And I'm like, these are people, many of whom are no longer able to work or who are retired, who are going to have this condition for the rest of their lives. We wanted to put grassroots, ground level, accessible, long-term programs in place that would benefit the community, not just see people for 6 or 8 weeks and then hope that they can retain that, or so that's the other key part of our model, is that no one's going to get rich delivering Counterpunch Parkinson's, but we hope that it'll be a part of other things that you do. And we wanted to make sure that that message was clear, that this is, I'm not saying that nobody with Parkinson's has money. I see a lot of people privately and they're paying private money to see me for one-to-one sessions, but the model for Counterpunch was that it's got to be accessible to everybody long term. And so that's really what we do. And we work with people who have Parkinson's and Parkinson's related conditions through Counterpunch. That's what they're covered for.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. It makes a lot of sense. And a solid business model, because you're putting the end users at the top of the list, or prioritizing them first, as opposed to well, how can we make as much money as possible, and serve some people. So it's about the people that really need help. And
by the same token, I'm not running a charity, so I make money when I run the course, right? We charge a nominal affiliation fee, which gives me something back for the time that I put into the back end of Counterpunch. And I do charge a user fee for people to access my classes. It's not a lot, but it's enough to, at least not be losing something on those hours. And so I think that there's this space for responsible capitalism within our industry. And I think that you have to have everything else working for you so that you can run a class. And if 3 or 4 people don't show up, you're not going, oh, well, there's my rent and there's my mortgage. You have to have everything sorted. But we try to support our coaches to see how you might fit this in. And, with Shane's network of people in the boxing industry, if I've got somebody who really wants to get something up and started in, I don't know, Masterton or whatever, Shane might know a boxing gym that would be willing to, let us use space at a quieter time in the day where, at a low cost facility hire. So we try to help people find a model that works for them, but, by the same token, know that we're working with a vulnerable population who are going to be progressively more disabled over the course of their lifetime.
So is there an annual renewal for those affiliates to stay up to date themselves?
Yes. So the first year, they have a slightly higher fee. That gets them set up onto our website. It gets them part of our referral network. It gets them things like intake documents and other stuff that we've prepared. And then after that, they pay $99 per year to stay affiliated with us. I mean, a big part of being affiliated is that they can use our branding and our name, and that we can say hand over heart that the coaches running the programs are people who have passed our entire course. So we teach people about Parkinson's, and we teach people boxing foundations, and we teach people how to put that all together. So, if a coach is at a gym and they move on, the gym loses their affiliation unless another coach comes through with us. So we really, and we have neurologists referring directly to us because that quality assurance is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, that referral basis of where those clients come from. Of course, if they haven't heard of Counterpunch, but they need the services, then they would find you some other way. So
yes,
doctors, physios, surgeons.
The number one is word of mouth, by far. Right. So what's amazing about the Parkinson's community, and possibly more so than other conditions, that's a sweeping generalization, they're really out there and into it and onto it. So they're online, they're looking. The message that exercise is as important as medication, if not more so, for people with Parkinson's, is already out there in this community. Whereas in other conditions like multiple sclerosis, there's still some mixed messaging about the benefits. People are really worried about. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But the bad information about the benefits of exercise is out in other conditions. In Parkinson's, very clearly, they're told almost always from point of diagnosis that they need to be exercising. So they're looking. So the Parkinson's New Zealand has regional support groups and local support groups. For the most part, they are referring to us. And when I say referring, they're not exclusively referring to us. They keep our information where we have. So if we have a program in a location and the Parkinson's community educator is visiting somebody, our information is part of what's being given to people.
Yeah, okay.
But by and large, it's somebody knows somebody else with Parkinson's, or somebody's wife knows somebody's husband with Parkinson's. The word of mouth thing is always, I've stopped printing flyers and stuff like that. It's just not, this community is not looking for a brochure. They're looking for somebody else to say, oh yeah, my husband goes there and it's really been helpful for him.
Brilliant. So inquiries would come through you, and then you would sort of fire them out to regional locations that would match up with the person needing the help.
Yes.
Yeah.
We take a lot of the general referrals from the internet. Anything that's not location specific will come directly to me.
Yep.
All of our affiliates have a sub page set up on our website, which allows people to contact them directly, but I host the main website, the Facebook page. There's a closed Facebook group. So during lockdowns, I was live virtually every day, doing a group exercise session, some boxing and some functional mobility and some other things like that. So that was open to anyone with Parkinson's anywhere in the world during these crazy times. So there's a humongous network of people that come directly through me, and then I put back out into appropriate locations, and where possible, work with the local Parkinson's community to find an appropriate coach or boxing gym who might like to get a program up and running, especially over this last little while with it being hard to run courses. And I'm just over canceling and rebooking and stuff like that too. I've been working more with gyms to run an in-service and bring a few coaches through training just with me and them, just for the purpose of starting programs up. So there's different ways that I can get the information and skill set into the right hands if there's will and desire to deliver services. So.
Right. Yeah. And you've got your own brand, which is I guess some of the other time that if you may not be doing all the Counterpunch stuff all the time, is Unruly, which you're wearing right now. Nice.
I am.
I like it.
Yes. Got to represent.
Very cool. I had a quick flick through the website as well. It looks awesome. And you've got a new space, and you've got some new branding with the new name. And tell us a bit about Unruly. I mean, Alexander touched on it a bit for us, but tell us more.
So for me, for a long time, I've been using the hashtag We Are Unruly with Counterpunch, and with, I trade under Transformations Movement for Everybody when I'm doing one-to-one stuff. And we chose Unruly because it has yes, it means not quite doing what you're supposed to be doing, but it has an edginess, a misbehaving kind of connotation. It has a playful mischievousness in there. And once you start dabbling in, especially in neurological conditions, you kind of realize that it really suits what goes on with their movement and with their bodies and with their brain, and their bodies do and don't play nicely with each other. We wanted something in Parkinson's that was, you know, like sometimes we get these 80-year-olds putting on these gloves and they look like, you know, your badass granddads and stuff like, you know, we wanted something that reflected that, that edgy, trying to be edgy sounds like saying you're trying to be cool, but it is a little bit different. And we didn't want it to feel like therapy. We didn't want it to feel like caregiving. We didn't want it to feel like, you know, oh, la, 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 look at all these nice, you know, we're in there yelling at them and, you know, calling them hooligans and getting them moving. And for me, more and more, I start to, you know, I'm menopausal now. I'm definitely dealing with an unruly body. And then you kind of extrapolate that out to like most people, especially when we're looking at how they move and where their physicalness is, unless you're like an elite athlete under all kinds of amazing amounts of control, most people are dealing with unruly bodies. You know, it's hard to lose weight and joints don't always do what they're supposed to do. And like all, you know, and when we pulled that apart and we went, actually, the studio, who do we want to attract in? Who do we want to appeal to? We didn't want to appeal to the people with perfect bodies wearing, you know, tiny crop tops who only wanted to just smash out power workouts. We wanted people who felt that they belonged regardless, who needed a place to call home and who maybe weren't finding that place in the mainstream fitness industry. And so while we do mainstream stuff in there, we have people of all ages and shapes and sizes. We have, you know, people my age who've brought their parents and who do classes, you know, boxing classes right beside their parents. And we've got people bringing in their teenage sons, you know, and we've got people all shapes, colors, sizes, nationalities. And my Parkinson's clients, my prostate cancer clients, my MS clients, my dementia clients are members of Unruly also, because that's more of a way to brand humans as opposed to a side group of humans. Like really, that's most of us. And we wanted a place where if we were to have a picnic and some of my Parkinson's guys happened to show up, that would be okay. And where the members, you know, if people came early for their class and I'm finishing up with a client, that it wasn't like, ooh, better not go in there because that, you know, person in a wheelchair is there and we're not the same as him. He's weird and we're normal, you know? And our members have embraced the special population stuff, but more the other way around is that our special populations guys love that they are part of this. It's not like I'm hiring space at a place, but they, you know, they are Unruly members. They book their classes in through the same app that everybody else books their classes in for. They are part of this big crazy family, and they like that too. And I want that for them. It's the long-term dream, you know, coming back around to where I started in the fitness industry. Like there's a time back when I was still living and working in Toronto, there was a gym that was targeting people with disabilities in Canada. Canada's a little bit different. It was more like, it was called Variety Village, and it was more looking at the spinal cord injury, like that kind of Paralympic sort of stuff. But even then I remember saying, like, wouldn't it be amazing if there was a gym where one person's got MS and their spouse doesn't, but they can belong to the same place? Like it's not an exclusive place only for disability, and it's not a place that excludes people with disability. And now finally I feel like I have the chance to actualize this. It's not perfect, far from perfect yet. You know, our bathroom is not perfectly accessible, all of these little things that we're working on, but it's, you know, it's the dream is a place that's actually inclusive, not just like has a ramp and calls itself inclusive. And my clients are starting to feel that they are part of this bigger community, and the bigger community has stepped up to the plate. But, you know, factor out my clients' disability and older adults and, you know, weird and wonderful stuff. You know, we've got people who've never been gym members who are coming into this place, people who've never, you know, never thought that they would ever be coming back into fitness, coming in. And the feedback we're getting is that there's something about this community that's very special. And yes, some of it's cultivated, but also when you model an inclusive community, generally speaking, people either stay or go. This is either somewhere you want to be or somewhere you don't.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I think it won't take long before you outgrow it, I suspect. You know, that's going to really build some momentum. And, you know, there can't be that many places that are doing that, getting that balance just right. can't be easy, but obviously it's something you've been cultivating for a long time, and they feel at home.
They feel at home. Touch wood that we're doing some things right. And it would be, I mean, down the track, it would be nice to outgrow the space. But right now we also, you've been to the space, you knew the previous owners and stuff, and we've got a good relationship with that bunch of people as well. Some of whom have come around with us too. Right now it's 2 kilometers away from home. We love being there. It's brilliant. Under current environments, having a space that can only hold a certain amount of people is very COVID friendly. And so there's people who are nervous about bigger gyms and stuff like that, who are comfortable coming to us. So right now it's perfect. And down the track, we'll see. Alexander's already got, stars in his eyes about the bigger and the next place and knocking down. And I'm kind of like, I really like this tiny little cozy space. It's working really well for us. So yeah. Awesome. Well, I probably could just keep asking questions and it would go past dinner time. So I'm aware that we've already used up over half an hour, and I kind of said that that's where we were going to do. So I might have to just invite you back for a part 2, Lisa, and anytime
we can keep going, because you're just a brain full of amazing information and knowledge and experience, and I'd love to just keep tapping into it. So thank you so much for just being so generous with your information, your knowledge, and what it is you're doing out there. It's quite inspiring. So I'm feeling very humbled right now. And
thank you for taking an interest. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. That's the idea, is to get as many interesting people on here as possible, because then that sort of opens up the world for people who are in the industry that may be going, I've just started, I don't know what niche I want, where do I specialize? Because everyone has to start vanilla, right? And 100%. Then they find out what's of interest to them once they start dabbling. And I sort of think that this is a great way of speeding up that dabble process, so that they can find the thing that works for them. And if they need to talk to people who they've listened to and go, I need to pick that person's brain a bit more, having listened to them, then they can. So that sort of begs the question, where could people find you? I'll try and leave some notes on the show notes and some links. But where would be the best place for people to find you?
I'm happy for my direct email to be left, but if they go through Unruly, or if they go through Counterpunch. So Unruly Company is probably the quickest social media response that you're going to get. Okay.
Well, I've already had a look at that myself, so I'll just grab the link and throw that in the show notes.
Perfect.
And if people want to say hello, they can go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And I am usually very good at getting back to people, but I'm learning my way around the complexities of social media. So a direct email and a text message will get an instant message, and everything else. If don't be patient with me. I'm an old lady. So
no problem. I'll put all those details in.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic, Lisa. Thank you again so much for your time. Been great chatting, and I look forward to getting in touch for part 2 at some point.
Fabulous. All the best, and thank you for doing what you guys are doing as well.
Oh, thanks, Lisa.
Cheers. Bye-bye.